I am Rebecca Norton, author of Rhythm, Practical Tools and Ideas for Finding Balance, Harmony and Fun. And I'm assuming you're watching this video because you either bought a copy of the book and want to find out more, or you're interested in buying the book but you want to know what's in it first of all. So the thing is, we have to read the book to take action to get the magic to happen. So what can happen is sometimes we'll get the book, we get really excited, we think, yes, I'm going to start this tomorrow, or I'm going to start it at the weekend. Life gets in the way, we forget about it, the book gets left on the shelf, and no magic happens. So the idea with this video is to share some ideas with you of how to approach getting the most out of the book, and also give you some information about what you'll find in it and how to use it. So what's in it, where to find different exercises and things, and how to get the most out of it. So first of all, some tips for you is dedicate a notebook to doing the exercises. There's quite a lot of exercises in this book. So find a notebook and dedicate a particular notebook for your thoughts, your ideas, and doing the exercises. Tip number 2, remove or reduce distractions as much as you can so you can give your full focused attention to the book and to the exercises. Even if that's just 10-15 minutes, it's much better to have those 10-15 minutes of focused attention rather than spending an hour getting distracted and keep coming back and forth with it. That's number 2. Number 3, adopt an open mindset. Sometimes what can happen is when we're reading something and we hear something, you think, I already know that. And then when we do that, our thinking shuts down and we don't take it on board. So instead of saying, I already know that, ask yourself, am I already doing this? A different question, and it'll get your brain thinking in a different way. Number 4, find a buddy to share your journey with if you can. So either somebody else with the book or just go through what you're learning in the book. When we can explain what we're learning and share it with somebody else, we get more from it. So we have to learn it and understand it better ourselves when we're explaining it to someone else. But also it's really nice to sort of share in those challenges or that wins, and you can discuss it with somebody. So having a buddy to do this with will help you get more out of it as well. If you can, that's just an optional extra. But my final tip, number 5, is do the exercises. I really want to get that across in this video, is please do the exercises in the book, because that's what's actually going to make the difference. So they're tips for actually getting the most out of the book and how to approach it. And you can apply those principles to any book that you're reading, actually, or any workshop that you're doing, any courses. They're really good tips for getting the most out of whatever it is that you're doing at the time. In terms of the practicalities, each chapter starts with a quote. I love my quotes, so it's a lovely way of sharing them. So you'll get a little quote in grey that's hopefully relevant and inspiring to that chapter. Then each letter of the model of rhythm, which stands for relationships, habits, your purpose, time, health, and mindset. So each letter has its own chapter, and each chapter has a core principle or an aim. And again, that's listed in bold. It'll just say what the core principle is for that particular chapter. At the end of the main chapters, you will also find a checklist, and that's just sort of a summary of the main exercises within that chapter. So it's got a list of the different exercises or try this activities, and you can tick them off as you're going along. So you can see at a glance which ones you've done when you flick through the book, and then you can come back to do any that you haven't yet tackled. So that's at the end of each chapter. During the chapter, there's also little exercises. So where you see try this, it means there's an exercise or for something for you to think about and do, maybe reflect. So you need your notebook at that time and to do that exercise and try something out. Some of the diagrams in there and the little resources will have a mini QR code next to them. And that means that you can scan that and it will take you to a page on my website where you can actually download that resource. So not all of the graphics in the book have the QR code, but I have actually made the resources for all of the graphics or the templates in the book. They are on my website. So if you go and scan it once, it'll take you to the website, or you can just go to my website, which is www.ebook senseofdirection.life. And then if you go to /book resources, or if you go on the menu and find rhythm book, it will take you to that page, and you can see all the different resources on there which you can download. And there's a few extras in there as well for you. I like to give little bonuses. There's a few extra things on that page too. So then with regards to the chapters, there are 8 chapters and the introduction. So the introduction gives you a little bit of background about why I decided to write the book, and give a little bit of context. Chapter 1 is getting into your rhythm, called Getting Into Your Rhythm. And the idea with that is to set the scene a little bit, explain about the rhythm model. And the first exercise is in there as well. So that is a wheel. The rhythm wheel, which I refer to a few times. So that is the rhythm wheel, and it's an exercise for you to do at the beginning. That is important that you do that one first, because that gives you a baseline measure of how you're feeling about different aspects of your life at the minute. And then the idea is that you will read the book, do the exercises, and then you check in again at the end and revisit that and see how your scores have changed, and if there's any that you still want to work on in that. So that's in that first chapter. So I highly recommend doing that, and then reviewing that every sort of 3 to 6 months. Actually, it's a really helpful exercise to do to monitor your progress. Chapter 2 is relationships. So that's the first letter of the model. That's the longest chapter in the book. And that's probably because relationships, I find, is one of the most complex areas of our lives. So there's a lot to go into within that chapter, and include things such as the relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, boundary setting, and emotions, and how we process or how we deal with our emotions. Chapter 3 is around habits. So setting yourself up for success and creating positive habits to bookend your day, and how to incorporate good habits in your life, creating new habits, but also reducing what we call unhelpful habits as well, and looking at what you really want. We need to know what we want to ensure that we can create the habit that's going to help set us up for success. Chapter 4 is your purpose. So although that's quite a short chapter, it's a really powerful chapter, and possibly the one that you might find the most difficult, because it digs deep. It gets you to look under the surface of things, and it can evoke different emotions. But that's a good thing. As human beings, we are designed to experience a range of emotions, and we've already looked at emotions in one of the previous chapters. You'll be able to handle them a little bit more easily. It's definitely worth keeping going with some of these exercises. You might want to do them in different sittings, and that's fine. Take your time over them. But we look at things such as your big why, right? The big questions in life. What am I doing here? What's my purpose? And the little why. So why do we go to work in the morning? Why do we do exercise? Whatever it is. So we look at big why and little why. And this can be really helpful for when we're making decisions around how we use our time, which leads us on very nicely to the next chapter, which is time. But just on your purpose chapter, there's another little bit that I want to point out in the book. So it gets you to think about your values, the things that's important to you. So just find the right page to share here. So there is a double page spread in the book, and it's got a long list of nearly 100 values in there. Please don't feel restricted by them. You can add your own words in there, or you can amend some of these, whatever works for you. So the explanation for how to use this exercise is in the book, but just please bear in mind that you can adapt those words as you see fit as well. So chapter 5 is around time. How do we use our time? A lot of people say they want more time, or they don't have time for this or that. But actually, how much time do you need, and what do you need more time for? There are some time management tools in there as well, but it goes much deeper than that. There's a real sort of mindset around how you use your time. Chapter 6 is health, and I split that into 4 aspects of health. So our physical health, mental health, emotional health, and a brief section on financial health as well. So a lot of people have money worries, and a lot of people have quite a challenging relationship with money. So I do feel it's important to touch on that. So I do touch on that briefly, but the other elements, so the physical, mental, and emotional health, are the slightly bigger elements within that chapter. I also talk about mindfulness, and again, there's a couple of resources on my website, some short videos explaining a couple of mindfulness tools that I mention in the book, so you can find them on my website. Chapter 7 is around mindset. This is a really powerful topic to end on. So that's the end of the rhythm model, is mindset. And that's looking at our mindset basically impacts on everything. So that's why I think it's really important. So we look at a growth mindset. How can we see when things that don't go as we planned, how can we use that as an opportunity to learn from? So I'm a big believer in feedback, not failure, and I talk about how to adopt that mindset in that chapter. Chapter 8 is putting it into practice. So I didn't want to just write a book of theory and getting you to do things. I wanted you to see how the rhythm model might fit into your life and how you can use it. So in chapter 8, putting it into practice, I give you 3 scenarios of 3 different fictional people and explain how rhythm might help them or impact on their lives and how they make decisions. So I have tried to make it as practical as possible. Also, within that chapter, I encourage you to think about reviewing and reflecting as well. So, talk about the skills of reviewing and reflecting, why they're important, and how to do them. Because I think that personal development is around raising our self awareness, and we have to review and reflect and sort of check in with ourselves. What we're doing, is it working? How can I make things better? How can I do things differently going forward? So, again, there's some more information around that. And then at the end, there's acknowledgement, there's some references. So I reference a few other resources and books in the book, so the references are there. And there's some suggestions for further reading as well. So if you want to take things further, there's book suggestions and the different things for you to look into. Now, if you've read the book, you've really enjoyed it, you've done the exercises, you've got a lot out of it, or you're struggling with it and you think, actually, I really want to do this because I can see how important it is, but I need a bit more support, then get in touch with me and we can have a discussion around my program that's based around this. And the program is called Find Your Rhythm. So it's based around the book and the topics within the book, but we go into it in a lot more depth. You've got accountability because they are live Zoom sessions every 2 weeks, and we check in on each topic and we'll go through the exercises. You'll have a chance to experiment, try things out, get some feedback on that, and the accountability and putting things into practice, basically. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's what your appetite to actually go and have a look at the book and start these exercises. That's my main point, is please go and do the exercises, okay? Please don't let your knowledge lead to, sorry, don't let your learning lead to knowledge, let your learning lead to action. And that's one of the quotes that I use in my book. Now, if you haven't got your copy of the book yet, you're just watching this to see what's in it and whether it might be useful, you can go to my website, www.senseofdirection.life, and you go and visit the shop, and you can either buy a physical copy of the book like this, or you can download an ebook. And again, it's got the links directly in there. And I will pop a link to my shop in the notes along with this video. I love to hear how people get on. I love to hear your feedback, your experiences. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to get in touch with me. It's always really nice to hear how people are progressing and using the resource. So enjoy reading it, and I hope to see you again soon.